The glass didn't break when I dropped it. That's what I remember first. It should have shattered. It was thin, stupidly elegant, and overpriced. But when it slipped from my hand, it landed on the hardwood floor and just rolled. Not even a crack. Everyone turned at the sound. Music still playing. Laughter still in the air. Except mine. I stood there frozen. One foot inside the living room, one still in the hallway. The door I just opened quietly swinging behind me. Her laugh echoed, not the laugh she used with me. This one was lower. Unfiltered. Real. And it wasn't meant for me. He had his hand on her lower back. Not possessive. Familiar. She leaned into him as he whispered something, and her hand touched his chest the way she used to touch mine when she wanted something back when I mattered. She was wearing my favorite earrings. He was wearing my confidence. No one said my name. No one noticed me. Not really. I wasn't supposed to be there. I wasn't even invited to this party. It wasn't for me. It was for her. For them. There's a kind of silence that doesn't make sound, it just makes weight. You feel it pressing on your chest, behind your eyes, inside your ribs. That's the silence I carried as I stepped backward, one slow shuffle at a time, until the door caught me and I disappeared behind it. I didn't slam it. I didn't breathe. I just walked down the porch steps like I was leaving a funeral I hadn't been invited to. It took 6 hours before she texted me. 2 words. You saw. I didn't answer. By morning, she was curled up in the hallway outside our bedroom, mascara streaked down her cheek, shaking like the guilty always do when they finally look down and see what they've done. But me? I was already somewhere else. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't take my toothbrush, or phone charger, or even my coat. It was cold that night, bitter, February kind of cold, but I walked out in a t-shirt and jeans like I was just stepping out for milk. Except I didn't plan to come back. Not then. Not like that. I left the lights on in the house. Kitchen. Hallway. Even the upstairs bathroom light, the one she always nagged me about. Wasteful. Irresponsible. Electricity isn't free, babe, she used to say while flipping switches behind me. But this time, I left them all on. Because I wanted her to come home and feel it. The emptiness. The quiet brightness. The absence that screamed louder than anything I could have said. I sat in the car across the street, parked under that crooked maple tree that always dropped sap in the summer. The windows fogged up from my breath, but I didn't start the engine. I didn't even listen to music. I just stared at our house, our stupid little brick house with the blue shutters she made me paint twice. I watched her walk in around 12:23 a.m. She hesitated on the front porch. I saw it. One foot on the mat, one still behind her. She glanced at her phone, then at the door, then at nothing. Like maybe she hoped I wasn't home. Or maybe she hoped I was. I don't know which version hurts more. She went inside. The hallway light hit her face in full when she stepped through. She looked tired. No, not tired, drained. Like something in her had finally snapped. She stood there for a full minute just staring at her purse on the entry table. I watched her from the shadows, gripping the steering wheel like it could somehow hold me together. Then she dropped her phone. It didn't roll like my glass had. Hers cracked. She bent down to pick it up, and I swear, she looked older in that moment than I'd ever seen her. Like she'd aged 5 years in one party. And then she did something that made me want to scream through the windshield. She sat on the floor. Just sat. Back against the wall. Legs folded. Like a kid in timeout. I knew that pose. That was her. I can't do this posture. I'd seen it once after her mom's surgery. Once after she lost her job. And once when she thought I was going to leave her 3 years ago over something far smaller than this. But this time, I didn't go to her. I didn't rush in and pull her up and hold her while she pretended it was just a mistake. This time, I watched. She took off her earrings and set them beside her, like they were heavy, like she could still feel the weight of what she'd done with them on. And then she cried. Not a loud, cinematic sob. No, the kind of cry that has no sound left. Just trembling shoulders and wet cheeks and hiccups that won't go away. I stayed in the car until the hallway light finally went off. She must have crawled upstairs. I waited 5 more minutes, then drove 3 blocks down to my brother's house. Didn't call ahead. Didn't knock hard. Just stood there on his porch like a ghost until he opened the door. Jesus, Curtis, he said, rubbing his eyes. What happened? She laughed at him, I said. He blinked. At who? I looked past him. Inside was warm. Familiar. Safe. She laughed at him like I never made her laugh. Then I stepped inside. And didn't say another word until morning. My brother, Damon, didn't ask many questions the next morning. That's his way. He's not the kind to pry. He just brewed coffee, handed me a mug with a cracked handle, and nodded toward the porch like that's where we were supposed to talk. I didn't argue. I sat down on the steps and stared out at the frost-covered lawn like it had answers for me. She hadn't texted again. Not even a, "Where are you?" And still, my phone felt heavier than usual in my pocket, like it was vibrating with things I didn't want to know. Part of me wanted to check, to scroll through every photo of her, to find proof that this wasn't who she really was. But the truth doesn't care what you want. It doesn't wait for you to feel strong enough. It just lands. By noon, I told Damon everything. From the chilly lie to the string lights to the way she didn't even flinch when I left. He didn't react much, just sat there with his hands clasped in front of his mouth, nodding slowly. "Do you think she loved him?" I finally asked. He took a long sip of coffee before answering. "I think she forgot how to love you out loud," he said. That hit harder than I expected. I stayed at his place that day, too. Didn't go to work. Didn't respond to emails. I didn't even eat until late, and when I did, it was leftover spaghetti from a container labeled, "Do not eat, Lauren." I ate it anyway. It tasted like cardboard. I didn't care. That night, I made the mistake of checking our home security app. I'd installed cameras years ago, just two, one at the front door and one in the living room. She never liked them. Said they made the house feel like a lab. I opened the app out of instinct, just to check if she'd even come home again. She had. The video showed her arriving at 4:07 p.m. She stood on the porch for nearly 5 minutes. In the footage, I could see her lips moving, talking to herself, practicing something. I turned the volume all the way up, but it was too muffled to make out. Then she entered. That was it. I should have closed the app then, but I didn't. Around 11:30 p.m., I checked again. I don't know why. Call it emotional self-harm. In the footage, she was asleep on the couch, curled up with my old hoodie wrapped around her like armor. And then she spoke. Just one word. "Eli." My blood ran cold. I rewound it. Played it again. Clear as day. "Eli." That wasn't me. That wasn't even close to me. She had never called me by another name before, not in a fight, not in a dream, not ever. And yet, there it was. Casual. Comfortable. Intimate. "Eli." I stared at the screen until the image blurred with my own reflection. I think I laughed a little. Not out of humor. The kind of laugh you let out when your heart finally accepts what your brain's been trying to tell it for days. The kind that comes right before the tears. I shut off the phone. And that night, I didn't sleep. I sat in Damon's guest room, on the edge of the twin bed that creaked when I breathed, and I stared at the wall until morning came. The sun rose like it always does, like nothing had happened, like it didn't know my world had cracked down the center. And in that moment, I realized something. It wasn't the party. It wasn't even the man. It was the comfort, the casual betrayal, the fact that my name wasn't the one that fell from her lips when she was unguarded. That was the real ending. Not the glass. Not the silence. Just the wrong name. By the third day, Damon's cat started sleeping beside me on the guest bed like I was some kind of broken appliance it had claimed. The twin mattress squeaked every time I shifted. The room smelled like dust and air freshener, and the blinds were stuck at an awkward angle that let in just enough light to keep me from pretending it was night all the time. I didn't go home. I didn't want to. I didn't even want to be near it. But on that third morning, my phone buzzed. A single vibration, like a heartbeat. It wasn't her. It was a notification from our shared cloud account, something we set up years ago to sync photos between our devices. She never liked backing up things. She called it paranoid that I wanted everything saved. I told her it was romantic, like keeping a digital scrapbook. Now I wish I hadn't. Because that morning, a photo appeared. She must have forgotten the cloud was still connected. Or maybe she never knew how it worked. Either way, the image uploaded while I was still lying there, staring at the ceiling like it might swallow me. The picture showed her sitting on our bed, hair tied up, wearing a hoodie that wasn't mine. Her feet were in his lap. Eli. I didn't need confirmation, I knew. He was holding a wine glass in one hand, phone in the other, not even looking at her. But she was smiling. Not the fake one she gave my mother. The real one. Soft and easy. They looked like they'd done this 100 times. I didn't open the image fully. Just long enough to burn it into my skull. Then I closed the app and threw the phone across the room. It bounced off the wall and landed near the dresser with a pathetic little thunk. I didn't pick it up for hours. I didn't even feel angry. I felt replaced. And worse, I felt optional. Damon found me outside that evening, sitting on the porch steps again, wrapped in a blanket like I was recovering from surgery. "You want to talk?" he asked. No, I muttered. You're going to have to eventually. I think she already said everything she needed to say, I said, staring at my hands. And then, as if summoned by spite or guilt or some sick cosmic timing, my phone buzzed again. I didn't move. Damon picked it up from beside the grill and glanced at the screen. She wants to meet, he said. Neutral place. Coffee shop. I didn't answer. Just watched the wind knock leaves off the neighbor's dying maple. She says it's important. Everything's important to her when she thinks I'm leaving, I mumbled. There was a long pause. Damon stood there like he didn't want to say the next part, but he said it anyway. Do you still love her? I didn't look at him. I just closed my eyes and said the worst thing I could have admitted out loud. I don't think I ever stopped. He sat down beside me. Didn't speak. We stayed there until the sky turned dark and the porch light kicked on. I agreed to meet her the next morning. Not because I wanted to hear her out, but because part of me, the sad, whimpering part that still thought maybe I mattered, needed to know if she was going to say his name to my face. And if she did, I didn't know what I'd do. But I knew it'd be final. I met her at the place we used to go before things got weird. That old coffee shop next to the train tracks. The one with the crooked, open sign that's been flickering for years. It used to be our spot when we were too broke for restaurants and too tired for real plans. The same dusty green awning. Same smell of burnt espresso and cinnamon. The only difference now was the reason we were there. I got there early. I always did. Not out of politeness. It was a survival thing. I needed to control the entrance, to watch her walk in, to brace for the hit instead of getting blindsided. The same way people flinch before a punch. She walked in at 9:17 a.m., wearing the denim jacket I gave her last spring. We bought it during that weekend trip to Asheville, the same trip I later found out overlapped with the beginning of her little side story. She had already been texting Eli back then, probably lying in that same jacket. Now here she was, wrapped in it like some kind of armor, like she wanted me to feel nostalgia instead of nausea. She spotted me instantly. No wave. Just a quiet walk to the table like we were meeting for a tax audit. She sat down, folded her hands in front of her like she was praying, and took a long breath before even looking at me. I spoke first. You sent a photo to the cloud. Her face froze. Pale. Like I'd stabbed her through the heart with a USB stick. I didn't mean to, she started. That's the worst part. I cut in. You didn't even know. She fumbled for words. Curtis, please. I saw him. On our bed. I didn't know it was still connected. That's not the point, I said, voice cracking halfway through. The point is that you were comfortable. With him. In our space. Tears formed. I didn't care. She reached for my hand. I pulled away like it burned. I don't love him, she said quickly, like it was a reflex. It was stupid. I didn't even mean for it to go that far. I stared at her for a long time. So it did go far. Her silence was louder than a confession. I missed being seen, she finally whispered. With you, everything started to feel like background noise. Like I was living next to you, not with you. I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. And so what? You gave him the lead role in your little drama. He listened. I laughed. Just once. One hollow, jagged sound that startled even me. He listened? That's your excuse? I gave you everything, Lorna. I built our life around you. I ignored things I shouldn't have. Let things go I never should have tolerated. All because I thought you were just tired, not gone. She wiped her face. I didn't mean to ruin us. But you did. The silence between us was unbearable. I looked around the shop. No one else knew that a marriage was dying at table 6. People were typing emails, sipping lattes, laughing about dumb weekend plans. But our world was imploding in slow motion. Then she did something unexpected. She slid a piece of paper across the table. It was folded, creased, worn like it had been in her pocket for days. I didn't touch it. What is that? A letter I wrote to myself, she said softly. The night I saw your car wasn't in the driveway. The night you left. I stared at it. I didn't send it, she continued, voice thin. I thought I'd get to explain things in person. I didn't think you'd disappear. I looked her in the eyes. I didn't disappear, I said. I just finally saw what was there all along. She didn't cry this time. She just nodded. Because she knew. I stood up. Didn't take the letter. Didn't take the coffee. Just left a $10 bill and walked out, the bell on the door chiming behind me like some cruel applause. And as I stepped onto the sidewalk, I heard her whisper my name, not loud, not desperate, just soft, like someone trying to remember the lyrics to a song they used to love. I didn't go back to Damon's place after the coffee shop. I needed to move, to breathe somewhere else. I drove aimlessly for almost an hour, circling streets I didn't recognize, ignoring calls I wasn't ready to answer. The $10 bill was still sitting in the passenger seat where I dropped it after walking out. I don't know why I took it back. Maybe because I knew she wouldn't touch it. Eventually, I found myself parked in front of the old high school stadium. It wasn't intentional. My brain must have gone there on its own. That's where I kissed her for the first time, under the bleachers, after a homecoming game where neither of us watched a single play. I was 17. She had on a green scarf and smelled like mint gum. I remember that moment clearer than our wedding day. I sat on the bleachers for a long time. I was trying to decide if I hated her. That's what people expect after betrayal, right? Anger, vengeance, a dramatic burn-it-all-down reaction. But I didn't feel any of that. Just sadness that sat in my lungs like damp air. The kind that doesn't let you inhale all the way. She had slept in our bed with him. She had laughed in someone else's arms. And still, I couldn't make myself unlove her. That was the cruelest part. You spend years building something with a person. Tiny habits, private jokes, midnight confessions whispered half asleep, and then one week tears it all down, and somehow, your heart doesn't get the memo. When I got back to my car, I saw a new text from her. Just a photo. At first, I didn't want to look. I was sick of seeing images I never asked for, ones she never meant for me to see, or maybe never cared if I did. But this one was different. It was a picture of a post-it note stuck to our bathroom mirror. My handwriting. One of those dumb little love notes I used to leave her when I worked early shifts. You got this, Lo. You're still the best thing I ever waited for. See, I had written that 2 years ago. I remember because she was applying for a job she didn't get, and she cried in the shower that morning when no one could hear. I left that note and walked out the door before she stepped out. I never knew if she saw it, but apparently she had never taken it down. It was still on the mirror, faded now, the ink slightly smeared from steam, but still there. Her text underneath said, I couldn't throw this away. I sat in the car with that photo open for a long time. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, trying to decide what I wanted to say. If I wanted to say anything. Eventually, I typed, you threw away everything else. I didn't send it. I deleted it and turned my phone off. I spent the night in a cheap motel off the highway. It smelled like pine-scented cleaner and desperation. I didn't care. The walls were thin, and someone in the next room was arguing with their girlfriend through FaceTime. I heard every word. You never meant to hurt me, he kept saying. Like meaning changes the wound. I slept badly. Woke up sweating, sheets tangled around my legs. I dreamed I was standing in our kitchen watching her laugh, but it wasn't our kitchen. It was his. Eli's. I could tell by the photos on the fridge. But she looked happy. So happy she glowed. And I stood there invisible, holding the ring she had returned without a word. In the morning, there was another text waiting. This one wasn't a picture. It was a question. Do you want to know how it started? I stared at it for what felt like an hour. And then, finally, I typed 2 words. Tell me. She didn't wait for me to reply again. 5 minutes after I sent those 2 words, tell me, my screen lit up with the longest message she'd ever sent me. Not a phone call, not a voice note, just words on a screen, one long waterfall of confession. I didn't read it right away. I couldn't. I locked my phone, placed it face down on the motel's chipped nightstand, and paced the room for nearly 20 minutes, heart rattling in my ribs like it wanted out. When I finally sat on the edge of the bed and opened it, I braced for betrayal. But I wasn't ready for the honesty. It started months earlier, she said. Not with Eli. Not even with any physical cheating. Just loneliness. Quiet, creeping, unseen loneliness. The kind that grows inside shared silences and unasked questions. She said it began with small things, noticing how often I seemed distant, distracted, always, almost present. She'd ask how my day was, and I'd mumble something about work. She'd want to talk about future plans, and I'd brush it off with a tired nod. Then came the day she cried in the parking lot of the grocery store and realized she didn't want to call me. That was the moment something shifted. That night, she said, Eli just happened to be there. He worked in the same building, not even in her department, and he saw her crying in the break room. Offered her tissues. Said something stupid about how crying made your eyes look powerful, not weak. She laughed. And in that moment, she didn't feel invisible. He asked nothing from her. Just listened. They started talking more. In person. Then through messages. Then late-night chats when she couldn't sleep. And then, one night, he invited her to a party. The same party where I saw them. But before that night, Before anything physical happened, she'd already made the choice. She said the cheating didn't begin when they kissed. It began the moment she started hiding how often she thought about him. She admitted everything. The hotel. The Thursday afternoons when I thought she was at her book club. The photo in the cloud wasn't an accident. She knew how the app worked. She just didn't expect I'd still be looking. And then she said something that gutted me more than anything else. I didn't stop loving you, she wrote. But I stopped believing you noticed. I don't know how long I sat there. I read that message at least 3 times, and each time it hit a little different. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was grief. A different kind of loss, not of a person, but of a version of us that could have survived if either of us had spoken sooner. She ended the message with this. If you ever want to yell at me, I won't stop you. If you never want to speak to me again, I'll understand. But if there's even a small part of you that still wonders if we can fix what's left, I'm still here. Still here. Like those words could undo everything. I didn't answer. I left the motel, drove to a park near the old train station, and just sat on a bench like some lost character in a play that didn't know his next line. And as I sat there, something strange happened. A woman I didn't know, maybe in her 60s, hair in a long braid, wearing a Cub sweatshirt, sat down beside me and said nothing. She didn't look at me, didn't ask what was wrong, just sat in silence, sharing the bench. After a few minutes, she pulled a granola bar out of her purse, broke it in half, and offered me the larger piece. I took it. I hadn't eaten all day. And without even knowing me, she said, whatever it is, son, it's not going to look the same tomorrow. Then she stood and walked off. I sat there with half a granola bar in one hand and a phone full of damage in the other. And for the first time in days, I didn't feel like crying. I felt like deciding. I didn't rush the decision. I sat with it for an entire day, not in my car, not in a motel, not at Damon's, but in the public library, of all places. I needed a quiet space where nobody knew me, nobody cared, and every whisper of my name had vanished into silence. I sat in the nonfiction section, next to a rack of outdated travel guides, watching dust dance in the morning light. I didn't look at my phone. I didn't replay her message again. I just stared at the wall and tried to remember who I used to be before all of this. Before love got hard. Before silence became a language we both forgot how to translate. And then, sometime around 3:15 p.m., maybe later, I stood up, walked out, and drove home. I didn't call first. I didn't text to say I was coming. If she was gone, I'd deal with it. If he was there, I'd deal with that too. I was done hiding from my own life. When I turned onto our street, I half expected her car to be missing from the driveway. But it was there parked crookedly, like she had pulled in fast. The porch light was on. In the middle of the day. I sat in the car for exactly 10 seconds. Then I got out. I didn't knock. I still had a key. The door creaked when I opened it, same as always, and the scent of her perfume drifted into my lungs like some muscle memory. It hurt, but it didn't knock me down this time. She was in the kitchen, at the counter, making coffee. When she turned and saw me, her whole body froze, like her soul hadn't caught up to her skin. She didn't speak right away, just blinked and clutched the mug like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. I didn't think you'd come back, she finally whispered. I didn't say anything at first. I stepped forward and placed something on the counter between us. The note, the one I'd found years ago, tucked in the back of a drawer under old receipts and hair ties. It was a tiny thing she'd written on our honeymoon, when she thought I was still asleep. You make the air feel easier to breathe. Don't ever let me forget this version of us. Lo. Her eyes widened when she saw it. You kept that, she asked, barely audible. I forgot I had, I said. But it was the first thing I saw this morning when I opened the drawer for socks. She looked down, tears brimming. I read your message, I added. She nodded. I meant every word, she said. And for the first time in days, we stood in the same room without a single lie between us. I walked to the table and sat down. She followed slowly, mug still in hand. I can't promise I won't be angry again, I told her, or that I'll forget what happened. But I miss being seen too. I miss being in this, whatever this was, whatever it can be again. She swallowed hard. I don't want him. I wanted to feel visible. But I never stopped seeing you. I just stopped believing you'd turn around. I looked at her, really looked. Tired eyes, nervous fingers, regret in every breath. But underneath it all, still her. Still mine, in a way that isn't about possession, but about presence. I reached for her hand. She broke into tears. This time, I didn't let go. We didn't fix everything that day. We didn't pretend it was okay. But we talked. For hours. More than we had in months. We opened wounds we hadn't dared name, laughed in between tears, and admitted truths we never knew how to say before. That night, I didn't sleep on the couch. I slept beside her, not out of habit, not out of forgiveness, but out of choice. And as I closed my eyes, I whispered a promise to myself. This time, I won't let us become invisible. Not again. The light was still on when I fell asleep. And for the first time in a long time, I wanted it to be.